Syracuse football, bad news from the football game played on Saturday. Milo Wax went down. Now the question is who will replace Milo Wax? I have a good idea. You can easily slide and Wild Sparrow over there, or the guy who caught an interception from West Virginia, Hurd. So Syracuse is not thin at linebacker, and they have the backup Wembley, who is a plug and play player, just like the other guys I just named. So Syracuse shouldn't miss Milo Wax while he's out for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, that's what it is. A week, 2 week, or 3 week ankle sprain. Ice it up and he'll be back on the field. Hopefully, it's nothing more serious than that. But Syracuse looked it bad in the first half. In the second half, they atone by coming out and scoring a bunch of points. But still, the defense has to find itself. Not saying that it's suspect or that we should doubt it in any type of way. But they did play a solid team from the MAC in Ohio. For the last couple of years, they have won 10 games and been known for their tough defense. And the state of Ohio put out hard-nosed football players. So we shouldn't look too deep into that. Next week, they have Georgia Tech. This is a game we can use as a measuring stick because it's the ACC. But Syracuse should fare well against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech in the first couple of games. The first game, they offense sputtered a little bit. The second game, it looked a little better. But now we have a measuring stick for Syracuse to see where they might be in the ACC and in college football. They do have a host of players who can get out there and get open, especially at wide receiver. Jackson Meeks, Yazid Haynes, Omari Hatchet is looking on the weak side. He dropped a couple of balls, so he might be losing his position to Jackson Meeks, who looked good and made the big plays. It just seems as if Omari Hatchet freezes in the big games, but Jackson Meeks stood up and standed out. And Trevor Pena was a star player with 3 touchdowns and barely seen any action for the last couple of years due to injury. Always saw that he was a breakout player and just needed a quarterback to highlight his skill set. And Kyle McCord is the guy for that. Emmanuel Ross, the true freshman, got burns. He dropped one pass but looked good in his route running and looked like he belongs there. And as the season go on, we're going to see big plays for him because he's a speedster. And Dan Villari didn't get a lot of snaps and reps, but Oronde Gasson did, and we know he's playing behind him. And NFL scouts know what it is with Dan Villari. So we have a long season just because he didn't shine in this game. And you see Syracuse is going to be a committal thing. It's not going to be one person stand out every week because they have multiple players. As you've seen in the second half, Yazid Haynes had a big catch, and other guys shine too. So Syracuse can do it by committee. And the other Justice Ross Simmons, he's out due to injury, so he's another guy. And you still have Gill, and I might be forgetting some guys and some of the other freshmen we haven't seen yet. But Syracuse is building depth all around in its football program. So we look forward to seeing what's coming up next. And on the defensive side, there were a couple guys who stood out. I'm not going to name any guys because it was borderline, and we can't really judge because we don't know what Ohio is going to be this year, but their line looked pretty good. And still, there's going to be growing pains because SU hasn't gelled yet and they haven't found chemistry in the up front, and they're rotating guys. Once guys get in rhythm, and they have a couple of guys in rotation who are pretty solid. And, anticipation was a big thing in this game, and nerves, and people were overrunning plays. So when they settle in, I could see this defense being a lot better, and the scheme is definitely top notch by Coach Robinson. People doubted Robinson and Fran Brown because they're just getting their feet wet, and the coaching feel and both of the guys looked it well. We can't really downplay that. Ohio is a solid and tough team. As I said earlier, they won 10 games. So they look solid, and we have Georgia Tech coming up with a nice solid team and a running game. So this week, I'm sure they're going to concentrate on stopping the run. And once they do that, their secondary is pretty solid. So, like I said, it's a long season, and I like these guys coaching, and people can't really doubt them anymore. They looked pretty good. They were on top of everything. I liked the game management by Fran Brown, especially training the wide receivers up after they make a catch on a 2 minute drill to take the ball to the referee. So Fran Brown is definitely a guy who listens to other people and doesn't feel arrogant that he can't take other things from other players, and that's just building yourself up. I like what I saw from him as a coach and how he motivates the players. And like he said, he's worked on himself and he's a work in progress. And we forgive him because it was the first game and you're nervous and jittery. You could see the sweat all over him. He was nervous. But he came together and got his team riled up, and they sealed the deal and got the victory. But Syracuse definitely has to tighten up his up front, and like I said, it's maybe just a chemistry thing. And once they get the right guys in the rotation, it should look better. But SU is promising because they have two freshmen, Period, and Morale Watson, who look good. And there's a third guy, and I've seen him on film and in practice. He can hold his own, but I'm guessing he doesn't know the scheme quite well yet. And he's a true freshman, so he probably has problems mastering the playbook. But like I said, once he get depth and experience, well, not depth, experience, he's going to be a solid player. I see him being a future star. So Fran Brown know what he's doing and recruiting, and we saw that in the first game from the freshmen who stepped up and the players who came from other programs. And his program that is being implemented, the dart scheme, people are buying into it, and it's like transference. They're transferring his energy onto the field, and that's a good thing when a coach can transfer energy and the kids start to speak, think, and act like him, especially if it's positive. You can only give a thumbs up. So I'm hopeful for this season with the Syracuse University football team because they have multiple weapons on the offensive side, from running backs to tight ends and wide receiver, and the line gets a thumbs up from me. Both tackles did what they were supposed to do. They got beat a couple of times, and Savion Washington had the guy, but they called him for holding because he fell and he didn't let go. But other than that, Syracuse offensive line looked pretty good, and I give them a B- for the first game. And that's great because the chemistry, like I said, is not there yet. These guys are just getting familiar with each other and gaining trust. But I like what I'm seeing and the program that Fran is building with these guys. He's definitely a good recruiter, and we can only be happy for what we saw and hopeful for the rest of the season because Syracuse is looking good and better than they looked in the past. And you can see it from the level of play that the players are being recruited here. It's just a step up. These guys are just much better than what they had in the past. Even freshman Marcellus Bond and Usain Willis, two freshmen, and Perry and Marion Watson. In the short amount of time, they are developing very fast under Coach Robinson and Fran Brown. So kudos to those coaches, thumbs up, and we can wait for the Georgia Tech game, which is coming up Saturday at noon. Like I say all the time, let's go Cuse. Until the next time.